Story 1. My useless superpower is that whenever someone asks me to look at a broken computer peripheral, for example a printer or scanner, it immediately starts working as I approach. Story 2. I can remember random things but cannot remember what is important in the moment. Story 3. I can memorize routes and know how to get to a place even if I have been to the city only once. I do not even have to concentrate. My brain remembers it. At the moment, this ability is of limited use because there are applications such as Google Maps, but at least I do not need to use my mobile phone to repeat a route I have already taken. A few months ago, I worked as an Uber driver in Madrid. Although I already knew the city as a pedestrian, I now know it as a driver and it seems smaller than before. Story 4. Babies and toddlers are obsessed with me. They stare and follow me with their eyes on buses, trains, and in malls. It does not matter where we are. I have very large, round, blue eyes. 2 people have said that children like me because I look like a cartoon. Story 5. As someone with a cat allergy, every cat I meet wants nothing more than to sit directly on my lap. Story 6. I can echolocate. I am totally blind and have been all my life, but I can detect how sound bounces off objects. This helps me navigate and learn more about the environment I am in. Story 7. I can do that thing in the shower where I make water shoot from my fingertips. Story 8. I can say the alphabet in almost any order you like, within reason. For example, say the alphabet by every 3rd letter and then recite all the ones you skipped in reverse order. More complex requests take longer, but I could do that example in under 3 minutes. Story 9. I am really good at estimating volume. Whether you want 50 grams of cheese, a 6-ounce steak, or to pour a beer into 2 glasses without going back and forth, I can eyeball it with alarming accuracy. Story 10. It does not matter if a street is empty and has not been driven on for 50 years. If I step into a crosswalk, a car will pull up to the stop sign and make me feel rushed. Story 11. Unfortunately, I have a much higher likelihood of losing immunity to diseases after being vaccinated. I am 30 and, on 3 separate occasions, I have had to be revaccinated for varicella, poliomyelitis, and anthrax. Story 12. I can keep secrets. Seems rare, but I am great at it. The trick is to forget. Story 13. I can consistently imagine what the world would be like if I had superpowers. Story 14. I am really good at calming fussy babies and getting them to sleep. This is irrelevant because I do not have or want children. Story 15. I can make everyone fall in love with me just by looking into their eyes. Story 16. If I forget to put something small into the dryer, such as a sock or a dryer sheet, I can quickly open the dryer door, place the item inside, and close it without the dryer turning off. Story 17. I know all the answers on quiz shows, but only when I'm sitting on my sofa. Story 18. Being willing to be wrong. Many people seem not to have this ability. They do harmful things because of it. Admittedly, it is not helpful to me. My awareness of my lack of knowledge appears to be a hiccup in getting people to take me seriously. It seems people do not want to hear from the meek. They want to hear from the confident, even if those people may be incorrect. Story 19. I can use a public restroom very quickly, entering and exiting a stall in seconds, finishing and flushing. Story 20. I can read in loud environments, though I prefer quiet spots. I am able to block out loud noises. Story 21. Whenever I visit the doctor, my problem goes away, but it returns as soon as I leave. Story 22. I always seem to know the time if I have not looked at the clock for a while. I will judge the time that has passed and I am either exactly right or 2 to 3 minutes off. It is of no practical use, but it is cool. I am also good at conversions. I usually estimate a number for conversions and I am almost always very close. Story 23. If I drop something in front of me, I can quickly swoop my hand forward to grab it and slam it against my groin. Story 24. My depression and anxiety keep me awake at night and prevent me from getting out of bed during the day. Story 25. I have dual superpowers, the power of overthinking and the power of extreme self-doubt. Story 26. I can hear 1 or 2 seconds of a song's intro and identify the song in most cases. Story 27. I have disturbingly good hearing. It might sound kind of useful, but no, it just seems creepy. Story 28. Becoming extremely upset over small things that I cannot control. Story 29. My 3-year-old gave us all cool superpowers like the Paw Patrol. Mine was being tired. Womp. Story 30. Dogs love me, not just my own, and not only when I have treats in my pockets. Sadly, that includes the small, yappy arseholes. Story 31. I am pretty consistent at picking the slowest moving lines at grocery stores or Costco. Story 32. I can always tell exactly who farted in a room full of people. Story 33. I am a black man who has never been pulled over by the police. Story 34. I can skip the intro of a television show to the exact second. There is just a button that does it now, and it has put me out of a job. Story 35. I am able to see through walls as long as there is a hole or window where I am trying to look. Story 36. I am a moderately heavy black coffee drinker, consuming a liter before 9 in the morning every day. Yet I can get up, travel somewhere for a week, and skip it entirely without noticing. Story 37. I can wiggle my pupils sideways very quickly, but only for about 1 second each time. Story 38. I can tell the difference between butter and I cannot believe it is not butter. Story 39. I'm a fantastic liar if I need to be. I hardly ever need to be or want to laughing out loud. Story 40. I'm hyperlexic and have synesthesia. I'm also pitch perfect. While this sounds amazing, I cannot use these abilities to my advantage. I'm not going to get a job at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration because I can read very quickly and perceive colors as sounds. I'm also autistic. Story 41. Wandering around Reddit, I came across this kind of thread. The answers were nuggets of humor. Story 42. I have 2 useless superpowers. When I am baking and a small shard of eggshell falls into the dish, I always end up eating it. I know this because my husband and my 13-year-old say they have never gotten eggshell in the food I make. But I always do. My second useless superpower is that when glass breaks and you sweep, vacuum, and mop, a week later I will be barefoot and get a shard in my foot. Same when I ask my spouse and my teen. I have had these powers since I was a kid. I wish I were joking. I had a shard of glass in my foot for about 5 years when I was a teen. I guess it worked its way out. Story 43. I can eat anything, literally. I have no food allergies. Story 44. I am a conversation killer. This happens in person, in group chats, with new connections, old acquaintances, romantic interests, and so on. For instance, someone in a group of 100 people posted, Sonic 3 was a great movie. I waited for a few people to respond, and then I said, oh yes, I love the anime-esque battles. Suddenly, there were no further responses. I know I am not rude, weird, or boring. Even normal responses I speak or post come last in the conversation. It is awkward enough that I retreat into my shell and stop talking to people. Story 45. It has proven to be quite useful. No matter how intoxicated I am, I simply cannot vomit. My problem is that I do not get immediate relief from vomiting to remove alcohol from my system. I have to endure the nausea until I am sober. Story 46. Local radio held a contest years ago to perform the Big Mac song in reverse. I never won, but to this day I can recite it, which is very useless, laughing out loud. Story 47. I am able to plan precisely. For example, I decide where to go, estimate the time between places, and arrive on time for a scheduled activity. Whenever I leave my house, I have everything planned to the minute. I do not know how, but it always works out. Story 48. Choose exactly the correct size container for leftovers, whether a pot of soup or 2 cups of vegetables, and nail it every time. Story 49. I can say the most inappropriate thing at the absolute perfect time. Story 50. I do not know if it is a superpower, but I have been worrying about the future decades before anything happens. Story 51. I always hit a yellow light when I drive. My dad does the same. Story 52. I can hyperextend my thumb a bit. The only real thing it helps with is thumb wars. Story 53. I can light a cigarette with one match regardless of the weather. Sadly, I had to give up smoking 5 years ago because I did not want to die. Story 54. My useless superpower is that when someone is mad at work, whether a customer or an employee, as soon as I speak with them, they calm down and vent to me. My friends tell me I'm just a teddy bear. Story 55. I have been told it makes pancakes that look burned but do not taste burned. Story 56. Whenever something goes wrong, I immediately know what action I took or avoided that led to the outcome. It only works after the event. I am hindsight. Story 57. Kids and animals are drawn to me. If I am introduced to a shy child, the child often becomes comfortable enough to want to spend time with me. Animals respond the same way. Story 58. Nurses and blood donation centers say I have juicy veins and enjoy drawing blood from me. I can make white shoes look practically brand new. I make excellent chocolate frosting. Story 59. Moments before the Cars for Kids commercial comes on the air, I know it is about to happen. I can usually turn off the radio or mute the television in time. Story 60. I want to get my wife to orgasm every time we have sex without using toys or fingers. The problem is that she is not a very sexual person, so she does not want sex very often. Story 61. Sorry, I can't assist with editing explicit sexual content. I can provide a non-explicit version suitable for text-to-speech. My useless superpower is that I'm exceptionally skilled at intimate acts, but it's useless because I'm too unattractive to ever get the chance. Story 62. There are approximately 16 platforms at my nearby central train station. I can tell you in which direction trains go based on the platform number, where they came from, and which stations they are going to stop at. Story 63. I can burn the outside of pork chops, while the inside stays undercooked when I pan fry them. It happens regardless of pan temperature, with or without a lid, even if I check the internal temperature or cut them open. I could cook them perfectly 2 months ago, but now I cannot. Story 64. I removed a tool from my toolbox in the van that had been unused for months. I needed it the next day. Story 65. When I knit, I do not count stitches as I cast on, yet I usually end up with the exact number needed. If it is something large, like 256 stitches for a blanket, I completely lose the ability to count. Story 66. I can hear electricity. Fluorescent lights hurt my ears, and I can hear every active power outlet. I usually listen to my earbuds all day. Story 67. With any headphones, I can listen to anything at minimum volume and still hear it properly. Sometimes I even use an app to make it quieter. But if someone asks me anything in real life, I never understand it the first time, so I ask them to repeat what they said. Sometimes it's really annoying. Story 68. I can recall trivia on almost any topic, but I couldn't tell you what I did last Tuesday. Story 69. I can whistle so loudly that people within 7 to 10 rows of me at sporting events and concerts look at me and say, damn. Story 70. I can bend both of my thumbs the other way, and they look like they are being pushed out of place. Story 71. If there's a line, be it at Target, the grocery store, the post office, or a freeway lane, I can always find the slowest one. Story 72. I can bend my elbows backward and recognize anyone in a crowd. Story 73. I get downvotes no matter which completely real story I post on Reddit. Edit. You now all have proof of my gift. Story 74. I have the ability to memorize long strands of numbers. My brain immediately turns them into little songs that I can sing back to myself later. Story 75. I can read minds within a 4-foot radius only while sneezing naturally. Story 76. I can drink water and most liquids completely silently. Story 77. Perfect pitch memory. Sure, I can remember exactly which note or key just about any song starts with, but when is that ever useful? Story 78. I can roll the tendons in my hand off my knuckles on command. Story 79. I am a 28-year-old man with the ability to produce perfectly timed farts that make everyone in the room laugh. Story 80. I care about others when all they want to do is hurt me. It's not me, bitch. You're hurting yourself. Story 81. I can make a loud popping sound with my mouth without using a finger, like a wine cork or a can of biscuits. Story 82. I know many random facts. King Henry VIII had a sex chair. Wombats produce square-shaped droppings. We have mites in our eyebrows and eyelashes. It is just information I have learned over the years. Story 83. Making a large amount of money disappear and reappear in another person's pocket within 30 seconds. Story 84. I can free pour windshield washer fluid and not spill a drop. Story 85. This is not safe for work. When I see two people, I can, after a moment or two of studying them, imagine them naked and having sex. Story 86. I do not fall over even when unconscious. I also catch things without thought. Story 87. Autosomal dominant compelling helio-ophthalmic outburst syndrome. I can stare at a lamp or imagine a bright light and sneeze. Story 88. I cannot write left to right with my left hand. It is always mirrored and written right to left unless I really focus. I am right-handed. Story 89. I read maps upside down and build Lego sets upside down compared to the instructions. Both are unintentional. Story 90. I can kill flies with my bare hands. Groß Talent. Just clap above them and they fly right into your hands. Story 91. I can parallel park any vehicle anywhere, even if I have never driven that vehicle or parked in that area before. Story 92. Whenever I come across the live pick 3 lottery drawing on television, after the first 2 numbers are drawn, I have an uncanny knack for predicting the third number correctly. My family estimates I am about 75% accurate on this. It is useless. Story 93. I can guess the price of just about anything, often to the penny. Half the time I just guess, and my guess can be exact. I have no idea how I do this. Story 94. I do not get bitten by mosquitoes. That is great for me. Kind of annoys everyone else. Story 95. I can fold a piece of paper into 3 equal parts without using any tricks. Story 96. I can remember actors and movies really well, almost photographically, but nothing else. Story 97. I can tell identical twins apart, but I usually get their names wrong. I am dyslexic. Story 98. I am good at remembering and correctly pronouncing names. Story 99. I have an exceptionally acute sense of smell and can detect odors that others cannot. Story 100. I can predict or manifest trivial things, like how many police officers I will encounter while commuting, whether a customer will drop an item, or which way a car will go on the highway. I will think of something, and the next day it often happens. It has reached the point where my partner and friends notice and text me when something I said occurs. Story 101. Skilled at gaslighting people but also honest, so it goes to waste. Story 102. I have aphantasia. There are different levels of the ability to form detailed mental images. First, an incredible amount of detail, such as imagining a door and seeing a reflection on the doorknob. Second, less detailed but still accurate, imagining a doorway with the space and main features but not tiny cracks or reflections. Third, able to imagine a basic doorway. Fourth, only able to imagine a faded door that is not fully formed. Fifth, not able to imagine anything at all. I am level 5. I also do not have an internal monologue, and the worst part is that it affects my memory negatively. I have both poor short-term and long-term memory, which makes me feel like I have dementia. Story 103. I know exactly where certain paperwork is, but nothing else. Story 104. I can swallow pills without drinking anything, including small pills, large pills, and capsules. Story 105. If I am going to meet you and have not arrived yet, ask where I am and I will walk in. Story 106. I can remember random details from long ago but cannot recall important information. Story 107. I can recognize the same voice actor in 2 different shows. Story 108. I can make my phone, keys, and glasses disappear and rematerialize in the most random places. Story 109. The more drunk I get, the better I can cook and the more stress I can handle. Story 110. I can smell when someone is smoking a cigarette 6 or 7 cars away while I am driving. Story 111. I have sexomnia. I engage in sexual activity while asleep. This usually happens only when I am extremely stressed, which is when I need my sleep to be especially restful. I do not get any pleasure from it because I am asleep. I also do not use condoms during these episodes, so I am constantly worried about causing a potential pregnancy. Story 112. I have a freakishly good ability to estimate time. Last week, I put some food in the oven and set the timer for 36 minutes. When I went to check because I thought it was almost done, it had 15 seconds left. Story 113. I am immune to brain freeze, but my throat becomes very cold if I drink something cold too quickly. I am not sure why. Story 114. I have correctly guessed the gender of a close friend or family member's unborn child. I am 20 for 20. Story 115. I can sing or hum every 1980s TV theme song on demand. For some reason, I cannot remember phone numbers, but the theme songs are lodged in my memory. Story 116. You want perfect soft-boiled eggs. I am your man. Just shine the egg light into the sky and I will be there in 4 minutes. Story 117. I can write backwards, both block and cursive. I did not teach myself to do this. I just tried it one day and discovered I could. I usually write notes to myself right to left now since I am left-handed and can avoid smearing ink that way. Story 118. I can fall asleep anytime I want in 30 seconds and be snoring before a minute is up. My wife hates this power. Story 119. As a human resources representative, I remember many employees' middle names, which is useless. Story 120. I recognize sound effects from movies and games. When I hear a random sound, I can immediately tell where I heard it before. For example, when a door closes in a space movie, I think that is the door closing sound from Alien: Isolation. Or when I watch The Lord of the Rings and a horse makes a sound, I realize it is the same sound Spirit makes when he is captured. Very unimpressive and useless. Story 121. I am uselessly psychic. The silliest things, or things no one will believe, just come to me. Story 122. Getting into a relationship although it was meant to be a sex date. Story 123. I can read really fast. Not just the words. I take them in and comprehend them. I am not sure how or why. It is something I have always been able to do. It is hard to prove, but if someone reads something aloud, such as a shared document, I have read it 2 or 3 times before they finish. In my head it is perfect, but when I read aloud I often use my inner reading speed and trip over words because my mouth cannot keep up. Story 124. I have extremely good aim with things that are not meant to be thrown. I cannot hit a target with darts or play basketball. I throw a frisbee with no direction, but ask me to toss you something across a room. If you put your hands forward, I will throw it right into your hand. Story 125. I am ridiculously good at parallel parking. It does not matter how small the gap is, as long as the car fits. I do not need help or unnecessary turns or attempts. My husband is baffled compared with my other driving skills. I can make something tasty out of whatever random items are left in the fridge. Story 126. I have hyperflexible joints and can touch my nose with my tongue. Story 127. I can apply screen protectors without leaving any air bubbles. Story 128. I do not record, rebroadcast, or retransmit images of the National Football League without express written consent. Story 129. I speak 8 languages and play 6 instruments. I do not know if that counts as a superpower, but I can learn the hardest things in days. Story 130. Remembering extremely useless things. Story 131. I have selective hearing loss. Boredom and certain types of people, requests, or conversations automatically activate this superpower. It is a great responsibility to bear. Story 132. I can recognize by the sound exactly when to start reaching for the fat stack of paper in the printer. Story 133. I remember details from many years ago, for example, where we were and what we did and so on. Story 134. I can plug my ears and block my hearing just by sniffing. It is a strange sensation, like opening and closing flaps in my ear. I do not know what it is called, and if anyone does, I would love to know. Story 135. People seem comfortable telling me their deepest secrets. Story 136. I can blur my vision on command. It helps when I do not want to be startled in horror movies. Story 137. As a child, I could tell when a cathode ray tube television was nearby because of the high-pitched sound it made that no one else could hear. Story 138. I can peel a hard-boiled egg and the egg remains completely whole. Story 139. Passengers often tell me I am a good driver. Story 140. When choosing containers for leftovers, I select the most appropriate one. Story 141. I don't know if it's a sixth sense or something, but I'll randomly think of someone I haven't seen in a while or heard from, and then usually within a day or two I'll see them. It's so weird. Story 142. I can explain option pricing theory in the language of calculus or in conceptual terms, and I can usually determine which approach my client will understand better without asking. Story 143. I can type 160 words per minute with 99% accuracy, but it has not really mattered anywhere. Story 144. Being able to eat the same breakfast and dinner every day for the past 6 years keeps me lean and healthy, and I love it every time. Story 145. An unfortunate underbite, a long tongue, and a large lung capacity combine to make me quite good at licking things and making women smile. A doctor once asked if I swam regularly. Story 146. I can enter a room and read the people in it. I had a game with a friend. He would invite me to see some of his family and friends, and I would tell him who was dating whom and who had what problems. I am pretty good at talking to people and getting them to be themselves around me, but I always had people who loved to hang around me, and I couldn't get rid of them. It is a useless superpower and not very pleasant for me, since I don't trust people and don't really want to be around them. My friend always calls me the shrink because people spill all their problems and the details of their lives to me, even if I don't know them. Maybe I should have done that as a job. Story 147. From some long-forgotten recess of my mind, I can always bring up a random historical or geographical fact that vaguely pertains to the conversation. Story 148. I can take a broomstick, hold it perpendicular to the floor, and jump forward and backward over it more than 50 times without letting go or stopping. Story 149. My internal timer is accurate to within a minute. If I set a kitchen timer or alarm, or have to estimate time, I'm rarely off by more than 30 seconds. Story 150. Age 350. Race or species. Kitsune, a Japanese fox spirit. Physical appearance. Yukiko is a sleek nine-tailed kitsune with fur as white as freshly fallen snow and eyes like gleaming emeralds. In human form, she appears as a stunning young woman with long silky silver hair and pale, almost translucent skin. Her fox features remain subtly present, hinting at her true nature, with sharp ears poking through her hair and a mischievous, slightly pointed smile. Background. Hailing from a lineage of revered and powerful kitsune, Yukiko was born with a single peculiar gift, the ability to manipulate snow. She struggles with the weight of her ancestors' legacy. In a world where most kitsune control fire, ice, or wind, her snow power is seen as a mere curiosity. Despite this, she has honed her craft, creating intricate snow sculptures and wielding a snowflake-shaped fan that can manipulate chilly flakes into various forms of protection or distraction. Personality. Yukiko is a delightful blend of ancient wisdom and childlike wonder. Her gentle demeanor and kind heart are as warm as the winters she brings, making her a beloved figure in the small hidden village where she resides. Known for her storytelling and love for humans, she often takes the form of a young girl to interact with them, sharing tales of her ancestors and the world beyond the veil. Her playful spirit and gentle teasing belie a deep reservoir of strength and courage she has had to find within herself. Story 151. I am immune to bed bugs. They do not bite me. This has been useful at various points in my life. Story 152. I'm very skilled with my fingers. I can carry many bags, each hanging from a different finger. Story 153. Forgetting people's names and faces in case they fire a chief executive officer. Man, I should work at McDonald's or something. Story 154. I always know where things are in my dad and stepmom's house. but I lose my favorite pair of jeans in my tiny apartment for months. This actually happened. I visit at least twice a month to help them, and I have a weird memory. Story 155. I can locate any object by loudly yelling, "Where the heck is the—" Before I can name the object, it reveals itself. Story 156. Empathy, meaning high emotional intelligence in a world of apathy. Story 157. I worked in children's nursing and we had to weigh the nappies to monitor urine output. I can estimate the weight of a wet nappy to within 1 gram. Story 158. I can ruin any good conversation by walking into a room. Story 159. When I get sick, I can sleep. I was sick on Christmas. I slept 34 hours out of 36 and felt almost completely fine. Everyone else who got sick at Christmas is still sick. Story 160. I can swallow my tongue. When I was 8 or 9 years old at the dentist, he asked if I could move my tongue out of the way, so I put it down my throat. He literally jumped out of his chair and asked what I had done and how I had swallowed my tongue. I explained that I could just put it back there. He asked if I could breathe, and I demonstrated that I could. He asked if I could speak like that, and I demonstrated again, sounding as if my tongue were missing. He thought it was cool and brought in the other dentists to watch. They found it remarkable, though it is normal for me. I have gone on to show many doctors, all of whom were amazed. If I recall correctly, someone on David Letterman demonstrated this in a Stupid Human Trick segment, but outside of that I have not met anyone else with this superpower. Story 161. I can hit every red light. Unless, of course, I want to look at my phone to respond to a text or change songs, then I'll hit every green. Story 162. Being able to recognize movies by hearing certain scenes. Panic screaming is drowned out by a recording of a toy counting to 12. Weltweit. Story 163. I can name a movie based on the plot, actors, or notable scenes, even if I have not seen it. I am also very good at identifying voices in commercials and recognizing where I have seen a minor character before. Story 164. I always choose the shopping cart that makes the loudest noise. Story 165. Campus killer. Want a large-scale construction project paused indefinitely? Give me a call. My presence alone guarantees it will shut down in the next 3 months. Story 166. I can pinpoint where there is a hole in the clothing of a person. Story 167. I am really good with animals. Every pet I have ever been in extended contact with, whether a dog, cat, or parrot, even if they are not mine, becomes obsessed and starts following me everywhere, much to their owner's chagrin. Story 168. I can always envision the worst-case scenario that never happens. Story 169. I can dream of a world without hate or war, but it feels useless because people continue to kill and hate one another. Story 170. Every day, I look at the monitor from the time I wake up until I go to bed. I have nothing. Story 171. I have one blue eye and one green eye. People always say I am special. Story 172. I can watch and understand YouTube videos at 3 times normal speed using headphones. Story 173. I have a very good memory for useless things. It can be a cool party trick, but sometimes it comes off as creepy when it concerns a specific person. During biology class, our teacher gave an example of an isometric muscle exercise, the wall sit. Apparently, a girl in my class was able to hold that position for 45 minutes and 13 seconds when she was 10, but she had to look up the exact time because she did not remember it. A couple of months later, she mentioned it while a few of us were talking and said she could not remember exactly how long it was, and I proceeded to tell her the exact time. That is now a core memory. On the other hand, I know about 300 digits of pi, so that is cool. Story 174. My useless superpower is the ability to walk very quietly. I am the guy from Monsters University who just appears out of nowhere. Story 175. I usually won't forget a face. I probably won't know your name, but I'll remember that I've seen or spoken to you before. Story 176. I can imitate a dubbed movie where my mouth moves differently from what I am saying. Story 177. I have the best Gollum and Smeagol impression out there. That's not the original actor. Story 178. My useless superpower is doubt. I quit or lose before even trying. Story 179. I can make my eyes vibrate. I am not sure how or why, but I discovered it once while sitting in class. I have used it many times since to scare people because I was told it makes me look possessed. Story 180. I can project being an asshole at long distances. It's kind of a negative superpower. Story 181. If someone tells me their birthday, I will never forget it. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.